glad I spent about 15 hours brushing up on Bomberman before I came in. Just good preparation. Very smart on my part.
So if this is the direction that Legacy is going, if people are going to play Bomberman, I feel like there's a lot of lands-esque decks out there, different innovations on lands. These decks that don't have Force of Will, these decks that don't have, tons of wastelands. I think you just show up with Reanimator or you show up with Storm, and anytime you're on the play, you just demolish these decks, right?
Yeah, Storm in particular is pretty noteworthy right now, I think, as being well-positioned. It wouldn't surprise me to see that deck pick up over the next few weeks, few months. Good start from the Bomberman player here. We have Chalice on 1. Turning off all those cantrips from the Azorius Stoneblade player. But here's a 2-mana spell. It's Stoneforge Mystic. That's going to resolve, and that's going to go a fetching.
This is the classic Legacy interaction where you shuffle, the opponent cuts the deck.
Hand it right back.
Yeah, you just immediately you're shuffling again.
That's just good, clean Magic. Pretty typical looking Azorius Stoneblade deck here. We're trending more towards the controlling end of things. 2 Narsets and a Teferi Time Raveler as newer pickups here. Also one of Force of Negation in the main deck for Benjamin Nichols.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. If you've got the Planeswalkers that provide more card advantage, you want to, A, protect them when you tap out, but B, have that interaction that's free that might cost you a card because you're making up for it anyway.
Yeah, great point. Azorius Stoneblade won the most recent MCQ on Magic Online. A rare Legacy MCQ was played. So deck seems to be well positioned in the present metagame. Berlett just going to go ahead and rumble in with Walking Ballista, make that a bit bigger. It goes to 2-2. Going to have to decide if we want to cash that in now. We are.
Oh,
we know there's a Batterskull in hand.
Yeah.
Can't let that hit the battlefield. Follow up Mishra's Bauble. Pass the turn back to Benjamin Nichols. Brainstorm, Ponder, Swords to Plowshare, Spell Pierce, Spell Snare, all shut off right now. Far from a lock against Nichols, though. We do have Teferi Time Raveler. We do have Council's Judgment.
All right, I got to go on a tangent here.
Let's have it.
The Snowlands. I hate it.
Can't give up that bluff equity. Got to have it.
Yeah, I hate it. They made all these cool lands, all these neat basics. People could decide what neat basics that they wanted. You feel invested in that. And then
you're playing Snowlands. Get over it.
Now you just play Snowlands.
It's a fair criticism.
And it feels like that everywhere, right? Like
it's mostly correct. If you're playing basics, you should probably be playing Snow basics.
Yeah, Modern, same thing.
Yeah. So here's a Mystic Forge from Eric Berlett. That's in response, well, not actually in response, but after the True Name Nemesis deployed by Benjamin Nichols. Finds a nice one on top of the library. As far as Urza's Bauble. Lotus Petal, we'll play that one.
Ooh,
Lion's
this is a
Eye
good
let's
one.
play this one. How about another Lotus Petal?
We are doing it.
Yeah, that's some effective Mystic Forging there. And all of a sudden, Nichols ended up +1 mana on that Mystic Forge deployment.
Yep.
Pretty crazy. Going to play a Plains. That's going to send City of Traders to the bin. I don't think Berlett much cares anymore. Here is a backup Chalice of the Void, also on 1.
Yeah, with that Forge in play now. Oh, man.
Here's another Bauble. Here's another Lion's Eye Diamond. This is preposterous. You are seeing Mystic Forge go off right now. Not accomplishing all that much, if we're being honest. Like, nothing has really changed about this battlefield, but Berlett is going to get a heap of cards from all those Bauble triggers in the very near future.
Well, and if you think about it, the amount of time it would have taken him to draw through these cards naturally,
right?
When he's staring down the face of the True Name Nemesis, just clocking him,
yeah.
He's already dealt himself a decent chunk of damage with his own lands. You know, the True Name Nemesis was kind of the best clock to have in the face of the Chalice of the Void. But now that the Forge is on the board, he's definitely going to find Not definitely, but the chances are so good that he finds the payoff card that he needs.
Here's a Teferi Time Raveler from Benjamin Nichols. Berlett going to go ahead and read that one. Not much of a standard player, I'm guessing. Mystic Forge returns to Berlett's hand. Looking to restrict Berlett on mana for the next turn is Nichols. Going to cash in the rest of these baubles now.
Draw 12,000 cards.
Yeah. Berlett tracking draw triggers via that die on top of the library. Pretty smart. He now knows about that Spell Pierce. He can play around it effectively.
It's a good one to know about.
Yeah. Don't think Chalice was going to let that be much of a determining factor in this matchup, but knowledge is power, Craig. Here's a Mox Opal. Here's a Cavern of Souls.
Naming human, I would imagine.
Going to take a bit more damage from that Ancient Tomb, but the deployment is Auriok Salvagers.
And this might be it.
Yeah, I think so. That's going to inspire a read, but really not much Nichols can do here. And Berlett's going to point at some stuff and say, hey, I have all the mana in the world right now.
Yep, we're going to loop infinite mana. And Walking Ballista.
Walking Ballista back in hand. I'll play that for 42 billion. Nichols says, yeah, I have less than 42 billion life, so I will go ahead and pick my cards up. And we see Bomberman victorious once more in the hands of Eric Berlett. This deck impressing you at all?
Well, it's all about Chalice of the Void, I think. The Chalice of the Void on one, if it resolves, is going to jam up a lot of these decks really bad. The games that it doesn't have Chalice of the Void, I can see it having a much harder time. The opponent can do whatever they want.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, we're going to go to sideboards now. I'm going to go ahead and read them to you folks. We don't have graphics up for these players, but in the sideboard of Nichols, we are looking at 1 Flusterstorm, 2 Disenchant, 2 Back to Basics, 2 Supreme Verdict, 2 Surgical Extraction, 1 Vendilion Click, 1 Blue Elemental Blast, 1 Teferi Time Raveler, 1 Celestial Purge, 1 Palace Jailer, and 1 I love Palace Jailer, 1 Containment Priest. Craig, what do you want to do if you're in Nichols' seat right now?
I want to go off on another rant about Palace Jailer, but I'm not going to do it.
I think we'll get a chance as the weekend goes on.
I can see a ton of these cards coming in here. Disenchant, Back to Basics. I can see the Surgical Extractions coming in. The Vendilion Click is good interaction. Another Teferi Time Raveler. That's a good answer against the Chalices that jam you up, or just any of the artifacts. It always replaces the card. So I can see a lot of these cards coming in.
Yeah, all those options sound reasonable to me. Meanwhile, over on Berlett's side, we are looking at 1 Cast Out Legacy All-Star, 2 Containment Priest, 2 Disenchant, and this card board goes a little bit deeper for Berlett than the last one we saw. We see a copy of Engineered Explosives, Ensnaring Bridge, 1 Lion's Eye Diamond, 1 Michael Synth Lattice, so does have access to that, unlike the last Bomberman player we saw. 1 Sky Sovereign Console Flagship, another Legacy All-Star in this deck. 3 Swords to Plowshares, 1 Tormod's Crypt, and 1 Walking Ballista. What do you want to do if you're in Berlett's spot?
So in the last matchup, we saw the Bomberman deck bring in the Disenchant, and I thought, all right, maybe this is just catch-all card that they want to bring in a lot of matchups. He has Cast Out here, which if you're going to bring in a catch-all card, I love that one, right? Like it cycles, so when it's a dead card, it just replaces itself. It hits more permanent types. So I like the Cast Out as an option. A lot of these cards I don't like a whole lot. I just don't want to water down my deck. I want to be able to still do what I do as consistently as possible. The Swords to Plowshares, are you really worried about killing some of their early creatures with the Swords to Plowshares? I wouldn't worry about that, but we'll see what Eric Berlett wants to do in this matchup.
Yeah, I think Disenchant is a pretty clear inclusion for me as well, just dealing with the Stoneforge Mystic equipment. I'm under the assumption that there's probably other sideboard cards I want to answer. Something like Detention Sphere is a consideration for me. It turns out I don't believe there is one here.
No.
But that would be on my mind. I would likely have a Disenchant or 2 in my deck. We'll see if Berlett agrees with that assessment. Well, we're seeing a lot of new cards highlighted in Legacy for sure. And we don't know what Throne of Eldraine is going to contain. But
if the last couple of sets are any indication,
yeah.
I mean, the power level has gone through the roof with recent sets.
Things have gone crazy lately. Multiple cards reaching back to these Eternal formats, seemingly targeting these Eternal formats to be just All-Stars right off the bat. Things like Mystic Forge. I mean, everyone on the planet knew that was a hit in the Eternal formats the second they saw it. We'll have to see if Throne of Eldraine has anything along those lines. But you can get your pre-orders in today. It's going to be shipping Friday, October 4th. If you want to get in your orders, head over to go.starcitygames.com/ELD to pre-order Throne of Eldraine today.
You're teasing the people out there. I'm sure they're expecting some sort of, a little preview, a little something to wet their whistle.
I wish I had previews.
We don't have it yet.
I would certainly share them. Not in my hands yet, unfortunately.
But definitely go and buy those cards that you don't know what they are yet.
Yeah, just get them. They're going to be good. Take my word for it. Both players just leading on lands. It's a good one for Berlett, though. It is one of the Cavern of Souls. 4 copies of Cavern of Souls in this deck. Cavern, of course, naming humid. Mishra's Bauble, also deployed. Going to get a little deeper into the deck. Turn passes back to Nichols. I see a Force of Negation, a Brainstorm, Council's Judgment, Ponder. Looks like a few options in Nichols' hand right now. On Berlett's side, it's just going to be land go, I believe. Berlett knows there's time in this matchup. And I'm curious if he's comfortable playing the long game. My guess is yes. I think if you're given enough time with this Bomberman deck, you can find angles to play around. Sure, you want to close the game on turns 2 through 3 if you can. That's great. Everyone wants to win as soon as possible. But I don't think this deck is without legs as we move to the late game. Here's a Ponder from Nichols.
Yeah, and he wants to find a blue source here real bad.
Doesn't. Spell Pierce, Gracchus, Council's Judgment.
Yeah, and these are all reasonable cards.
Not reasonable enough. Nichols says they're going back into the deck.
And I think that's the right choice. Second blue source is just going to open up the rest of his hand. Mm-hmm. I believe he had a True Name Nemesis. That's the clock that he wants to get on the board. And then he just backs it up with Council's Judgment, with Force of Negation, with Force of Will, and plays the game that way.
Yep. Takes a draw, only finds a Jace the Mind Sculptor. Only Jace the Mind Sculptor. That's a weird thing to say, but not what Nichols was looking for there. Really wanted to make that third land drop. And here is Chalice of the Void on 1. But Force of Negation at the ready. Going to pitch a Brainstorm.
Yeah, it's tough if you're on the Stoneblade side of things here to Force of Negation that card. When you have other answers in your hand,
right? You
don't want to lose that card advantage. You'd much rather be hard casting the Force of Negation or casting cantrips and still spell piercing, something along those lines.
Well, Nichols drew that second blue source off the top of the deck. He's taking a look, sees 2 lands and a spell pierce. Not satisfied with that either. Nichols just never happy. Always wants something new from his Ponder.
Yeah, it's funny because if that was the cards that you looked at last turn, he would have loved it.
Perfect.
Yeah. One turn later, can't keep this.
Nichols is a big proponent of the it could be a boat philosophy of Legacy. Always takes the shuffle, sees what's on top of the deck. Draws a 4th land source. Probably pretty happy to see that one. Turn passes back to Berlett here. Takes his draw. And we're seeing a glacial hand out of Berlett. Like I said, I think you can play into the late game. You don't want to sit there forever, though. Here's an Ancient Tomb.
Can we move the screen over?
Lion's Eye Diamond onto the battlefield. Berlett is going to burn Spell Pierce here. And while I don't consider this play particularly effective, there's not going to be much of a window for it in the future either. You can understand just wanting to burn it here, not thinking his opponent will be pinched on future turns. Now with Lions on Diamond on the battlefield, 5 mana available from lands.
Yeah.
Spell Pierce was the draw from Nichols. Going to go ahead and fetch here. Falls down to 18, picks up the library. We do have a result from our modern matchup. There you see Mono Green Tron falling to Mono Red Phoenix. Tough matchup there for Mono Green Tron. 2-0 in favor of Mono Red Phoenix. Nichols going to go ahead and pick up a second white source here. It is, in fact, Snow-Covered Plains. Craig's favorite land in all of Magic.
And this is an interesting line. I would have thought
So Nichols' goal here is to make sure that Lion's Eye Diamond is exiled.
Exiled, yeah, because the Council's judgment exiles it. If I was on the Stoneblade side, I would have wanted to get some sort of pressure on the board. I'm surprised we didn't see Jace come down. I'm surprised we didn't see the True Name Nemesis come down, and then these interactions starting.
Yeah, Berlett living in fear of that explosive combo potential of the Bomberman deck. We'll have to see how that line plays out as we move through this game. Another result from our standard matchup, James Buckingham takes game 1 against Travis Cyrus and Orzhov Vampires. Bantscape Shift up a game there. Here are the Salvagers. Pretty happy that Lion's Eye Diamond isn't around anymore.
Oh, yeah. And it looks like this is going to be a value salvager. Get back a bauble, just draw some extra cards.
Mm-hmm. There's a second bauble. Do see Disenchant in Berlett's hand. We did want a copy of that card from his sideboard. Going to go ahead and crack that bauble. Take a look at the top card. This is what I mean about Bomberman not being completely hopeless in these longer games. You're seeing now a card advantage source online. And Berlett's just going to attempt to outcard his opponent. Swords to Plowshares, the draw.
Oh, that's a good
Nichols.
one.
Yeah, don't mind seeing that one at all. Has Jace in hand, has True Name Nemesis in hand. I think this is just a Swords to Plowshares True Name Nemesis turn. Seems pretty clear to me. There goes the Salvagers. Here comes True Name Nemesis. Last card in hand is Jace. Not the worst spot to be in. Going to crack that bauble. Another draw.
Yeah, I think there was a brief thought of like, hey, do I want to make the greediest possible play? I'll make Jace, I'll brainstorm, I'll find the white source, then I'll plow.
Too risky in my eyes.
Very risky, and he had the True Name Nemesis at the ready anyway.
Right.
Which just makes it too easy to decide to go that route.
Here's a second Cavern of Souls. I'm assuming this one is probably on Construct.
Yeah, for the Walking Ballista.
We do have confirmation. It is naming Construct.
Look at you, expert.
Oh, well, I told you, 15 hours of Bomberman prep before I came to the site. Second True Name Nemesis is the draw.
All right, and this is an interesting decision tree. Where, Nichols has to decide, do I want more pressure on the board, or do I want to start digging for, that force of will, that answer?
I think it's got to be Jace. Second True Name Nemesis doesn't change the turn of the clock. So when you're assuming no interaction, as you often are when you're playing True Name Nemesis, I like just playing Jace here.
Well, it does change the clock, right? It shaves one turn off of it.
Does it? I'm not a math guy, Craig. I went to college for English, and then I went to law school, and in all that time.
Oh, it actually shaves 2 turns off it, right? So from 15, it'd be 3 attacks,
right? But if he plays True Name Nemesis on this turn, He attacks for 12 here, then 2 more attacks for
Sure.
6 each.
Okay. Yep.
See what I'm saying?
I do. Look at you. You're a math guy.
I'm not. Trust me. As soon as you questioned me, I gave up my stance. I was like, nope, I'm wrong. Because I am not a math guy.
Yep. Yeah, taking the turn off, get to look at extra cards. He found the force of will that he needed for this type of situation.
Yeah, a lot of safety installed there by getting the Jace onto the battlefield. Of course, Force of Will not going to do anything against those creatures in the deck with double Cavern at this point.
No, but you do have that insurance against Mystic Forge.
Right.
Potentially an LED.
Here's Stoneforge Mystic. That's going to grab Batterskull.
I guess it's good to jam up Karn.
Yeah?
There's definitely cards that you still want that safety net against.
Sure. Batterskull in hand. Can still deploy that other True Name Nemesis if he so chooses, and will have Brainstorm to pitch to force, but I think that ended up back on top of the library via the Jace Brainstorm. Here's a bauble. Which card will Berlett get to see? Oh, he knows about the Force of Will.
Found the good one.
I don't think there's anything good in Eric's hand right now anyway. And I think Nichols doing a good job closing this game as quickly as possible. Here's that Brainstorm. Going to bring those top 3 cards back. It's like Disenchant, Force of Will, Batterskull in hand.
Well, and things like deciding which cards to put on top is kind of funny to me, because you're going to make your draw step, and then you're going to brainstorm with Jace immediately.
Yeah, they're coming back.
Yeah, there was no decision to make there.
Has access to a shuffle now via Prismatic Vista.
Yeah, this time you got to think about it.
Things looking grim for Berlett here. Hoping to get a window for a combo Hail Mary attempt. But it seems tough at this point. Here comes True Name Nemesis.
Yeah, another Salvager would rebuy 2 baubles, draw him 2 extra cards, and then the turn after that, potentially he can go off. But it's not looking great right now.
Berlett tapping some mana. Going to go ahead and deploy Chalice on 1. I do not think Nichols cares about that one bit.
Yeah, this is a card I'd let resolve.
Nichols agrees. Chalice goes to 1. It's a bit more impactful of a card. It's Monastery Mentor.
Can't be countered.
And it does in fact resolve. Who would have guessed? Trigger number 1. Trigger number 2. It's going to be tough for Berlett to find lethal here.
Yeah, if this was turn 2 and you were getting all these tokens, it's a decent clock. But when the opponent has, the True Name, they've got the Batterskull with the lifelink. You're already at 9 life. The opponent's still at 18. This is a bad spot.
Gonna get a Germ to attach to this Batterskull, or I should say, to attach the Batterskull to.
No Germ.
Blasphemy.
What is going on here?
Blasphemy. First, no Karnok's chair. Now, no.
Oh, they're better. I was gonna say.
Getting Alex Pistecki into the feature match area. Usually does a good job getting himself there on the SCG Tour. Still seeing quite a bit of success recently. Had a good run alongside a fellow invitational Brian Koval at a team event. just a few events back.
Pretty good magicians.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about Bistecki and Koval being two of the more under-the-radar invitational champions of all time, but both excellent players.
All right, there's some sort of discussion here. I'm not sure what it is. I don't think that Nichols has taken his draw yet.
Yeah, I would assume we're at the end of Berlett's turn still.
Well, he untapped.
Has he untapped?
Then he sacrificed the
Yeah,
Vista.
Stoneforge untapped. Okay. Okay. So we're in main phase.
We're going to double check, make sure that he drew a card for his turn. There we go. Got to do that every turn.
We got there.
Well, and that just speaks to what a good position he's in, right?
Where he's like, I don't need this card.
Yeah, he's just thinking about all the things he's going to do with the cards he already has.
Sure.
Doesn't care about anything else.
Players in the 230 Modern Challenge. Your barriers for your first round are being posted at the gathering point. Please make your way.
I wonder if they're considering suiting up the True Name Nemesis here. Well, here's a disenchant on that batter skull.
Yeah, I like leaving the batter skull on the board here.
Yeah, Force of Will going to be the answer here from Nichols.
It's just such an effective clock.
I think it mostly just completely closes out the possibility of opponent killing you. And that was in response to a Jace minus on the Monastery Mentor. We are going to move the batter skull over to the True Name Nemesis, meaning this attack is incredibly safe, basically impossible to attack. Facing lethal next turn. Berlett looking for a miracle off the top of the library. Draws.
So Salvager's like, one of his best draws.
Salvagers.
But he doesn't have LED, so it's not going to do a whole lot for him.
Right. Yeah, and maybe that decision to fight over exiling that LED might be a game saver here.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So Nichols going to go ahead and even up the match. One game apiece between Nichols on Azorius Stoneblade and Eric Berlett playing Bomberman. Mostly enjoying these Bomberman games. I think they bring up a lot of interesting spots. Powerful stuff.
So you're going home to put the deck together is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm glad I found those baubles.
You already have the LEDs?
I do have LEDs, yeah. I used to play Dredge back in the day. Got the sideboards up on the screen for you. We could run through them again. I'm not going to go card by card, but is there anything you want to maybe touch up after seeing how those games played out?
No, like I said, I would expect a lot of these cards to come in for the Stoneblade deck. We see the opponent. The Bomberman deck only had a couple of basics in play. They've got so many non-basic lands.
Right.
I still think I like the back to basics. They get pitched to Force of Will or Force of Negation in a pinch. Sometimes they're just going to jam up the opponent. The Disenchant seems good. The Surgical Extraction, I think it's good for breaking things up. The Teferi, the Vendilion Click. Like there's just a lot of fine options here.
Yeah, there's 14 non-basics in Berlett's deck alongside 6 planes. I do think, though, we may have gotten a result in this match as you see hands start to be extended. It sounds like James Buckingham on Bant Scapeshift was able to take down Travis Cyrus on Orzhov Vampire.